On August 6, 2011, in Wardak Province, Afghanistan, al-Qaeda insurgents, perched on top of a tower with RPGs, shot down a decrepit Vietnam-era CH-47 helicopter, Extortion 17, packed with 30 Special Ops forces, most of them part of the elite SEAL Team 6. Also on board were 7 Afghan National Army soldiers, along with an interpreter and a combat dog. It was the worst loss of life in a single day since the war in Afghanistan began. Per the Obama regime, it was simply the result of a quote-unquote lucky shot by al-Qaeda. Per documentation, including the 1,300-page military report, heavily redacted and suppressed by the Obama regime, this is a lie among a host of lies. Per insiders, the mission, looking for al-Qaeda leader Qari Tahir, was doomed from the beginning. Doomed by our own government, doomed by al-Qaeda that had infiltrated the Afghan National Army, replaced at the last minute probably because the mission had been compromised, and doomed because they were flown into a raging battle in a chopper that was almost 50 years old. Why did they fly in a decrepit CH-47 that had been in use since the Vietnam War? Barack Obama had gutted the military budget while gorging the Muslim Brotherhood with billions of dollars so that there was a shortage of the state-of-the-art MH-47 helicopters, the helicopter SEAL Team 6 exclusively trained in. Further, never, ever were that many special operations personnel packed into a single helicopter. They were always split up into small groups with multiple MH-47s. 38 men were packed into what can only be called a flying coffin. It appears SEAL Team 6 was in effect murdered by our own government. According to the 1,300-page military report, an AC-130 gunship and 2 AH-64 helicopters flying overhead had seen the al-Qaeda insurgents perched on the tower with RPGs and had requested permission to take them out. This was denied. After Extortion 17 had been shot out of the sky and hit the ground in a ball of flames, the AC-130 gunship and 2 AH-64s requested that they be able to return fire. This was also denied. According to the book Betrayed, quote, a 3.5-hour firefight underway and our chopper flew in with an AC-130 gunship in the air, 2 AH-64s, and they were not allowed to give any pre-assault fire. They landed the chopper like it was landing at Walmart, even though a firefight was underway. When the chopper was shot down, neither the AC-130 or the 2 AH-64s were allowed to take out the savages who fired the RPGs. The Obama regime would claim that a quote-unquote lucky shot by al-Qaeda was responsible for the death of 30 Americans, but the military report cites the so-called rules of engagement as to why we couldn't take out the men pointing RPGs at our brave soldiers, that there might be so-called friendlies in the tower. Winning the hearts and minds of our enemies, as Obama liked to call it. This was Obama's new way of fighting war, a war in which we lose, a war in which our brave soldiers are slaughtered, and Obama stands on the corpses of our brave men for political purposes. But this is only the beginning of this abomination. There are still many unanswered questions. Here are a few. Who were the 7 nameless Afghan National Army soldiers on board the CH-47? Literally minutes before the Extortion 17 took off, the original Afghanis were replaced without changing the manifest. In the 1,300-page military report, it was revealed that this was never investigated, that the U.S. mission commander that authorized this was never identified, that the Afghan National Army members that appear on the manifest and were replaced at the last minute were never interviewed. There is only one explanation for this. The original Afghanis were found out to have compromised the mission, that the mission should have been aborted, and that the Obama regime is trying to cover this up. Where is the black box? The CH-47's black box was lost, according to the military report, quote, washed away by an Afghan flood.
Can't find the black box, which is really orange? I looked it up in Google. Them black boxes don't go away. They lose black boxes in the swamps in Florida, and they find them. You're going to tell me you can't find the black box? Not acceptable. I tell my boss stuff like that, I get fired. Right? My son's 25-year-old son got set up and killed.
Why was everyone on board immediately cremated? Everyone on Extortion 17 was immediately cremated without permission from the families, supposedly because the bodies were so badly burned in the crash. This is a complete lie.
When the helicopter got shot down, it's in the paperwork. We didn't know what helicopter got shot. It took us 10 minutes. My son, right? My son, Michael, was fighting for his life. Nobody came and helped. They didn't have the Pathfinders there to check the area. Nobody checked the light. Nobody came. Well, who's calling the shots here? This is bullshit. They told me my son had to be cremated. Everybody has to be cremated. My son didn't need to be cremated. I got pictures of my son. He was fighting. He had a gun in his hand. Come on. Fighting for this country, for us. And you're going to lie to me and slap me in the face? I called the command. I said, why'd you cremate my son? My son didn't want to be cremated. He's like, what do you mean? I got pictures of him. When I asked for the autopsy report from Dover, they sent me a disc with pictures. He's sitting there fighting. Everybody was burned beyond record. No, everybody wasn't burned beyond record. Another lie.
The most pressing question of all, however, is this. Why haven't the American people impeached and arrested this traitorous president, Barack Hussein Obama?